Hi, so due to quite a lot of requests and PMs and things asking me to talk about the Convergence of Fates Trinket Nerf, I thought I would throw something out there. I was going to talk about it. It's obviously going to be quite a hot topic for this Saturday's live rec Q&A, but I might as well just cover this in a particular video now. So many people have been asking, as I say. So, for those who don't know, Convergence of Fates, which, if you'd watched my Essentials guide updated for patch 7.1.5, is one of the three things that has, since I did that video, and I did that video, quite close to the release date so that I could get as many changes in as possible, has been nerfed. There have been three nerfs, actually, since patch 7.1.5 has come out. There was the nerf to Chain of Thrain. I was not at all upset about this. Some people are. You could argue I'm not that upset about it because I don't have that legendary, sure. But it was a very powerful legendary. It was more powerful than the others. And the other thing to bear in mind about Chain of Thrain, actually, just to go off a slight tangent. I am going to go off a tangent a few times here, sorry, by the way. Chain of Thrain of the, what I would call the 5 good DPS legendaries that we now have, which is a big improvement on the 2 that we had before this patch, is the only one that doesn't require any skill to use. All of the others require that you do something different to get best effect out of them. Chain of Thrain just does its stuff. So the fact that we had the one that was easiest to use, doing the most damage, did need dealing with. And it was the one that was best in all situations as well. So that needed to be nerfed. But it hasn't been nerfed to the point where it's still not the best. You still prefer it. I would still want it. Yeah, sure. I would equip it. And I've got the cloak and the good ring, which are decent. I'm not complaining. But if I had the belt, I'd use the belt. It's just no longer really overpowered. So if you've got the other ones, any of those 5 trinkets now, any 2 of them will be decent. The other one that was nerfed is Execution Centers. I have done a video on Execution Centers last week. And then finally, we've got Convergence of Fates. Now, this isn't specific to Retribution Paladins. The nerf is, but not the trinket. So this trinket, which there's a couple of trinkets that do the same thing, basically, for different types of DPS. So, on a hit, you have a chance to reduce the cooldown on your main DPS cooldown, Avenging Wrath in our case, or more specifically Crusade, but more about that in a bit, by 5 seconds. And it's an RPPM trinket, which basically means random proc per minute. So, and it's different for different classes. That makes sense, because you can't have some classes being able to reduce their cooldowns by loads and loads and others not so much. So you need to sort of vary what's called the proc per minute rate for the different classes. Now, before this nerf, it was 4.2 for us, which means an average of 4.2 times per minute. If we're doing our DPS normally, we would expect to get a proc. So on average, it's going to reduce the cooldown by about 20 seconds a minute, which means on average every 2 minutes by about 40 seconds. So, it was working out that on average, and this is an average as a state, not all the time, that you can be casting Crusade roughly every 1 minute 20 seconds-ish. Now the proc per minute rate has been reduced down to 1.2. This means that every minute you get about 5 seconds knocks off that cooldown. Well, that's worthless now. I mean, sure, in a situation, we all know what it's like. I mean, the first question is that people have is, why has this happened? So I'm going to actually just go off again on another tangent. There's another one. There might be another one later as well. Because this is nothing new. It's not even new for trinkets. I remember when I did my first Retribution Paladin preview for a patch. That was for the Hellfire Citadel patch of Warlords of Draenor about 1.5 years ago. Now, the trinkets available in Hellfire Citadel were all over the place during testing. Miles all over the place. But as Hellfire Citadel was about to launch, as the patch was about to go live, 6.2, it became clear that there was one standout trinket, and that was the Empty Drinking Horn. And this was for strength users only. And see, back then, unlike now, there were class restrictions on these trinkets that could be, really powerful for some. Like Elemental Shamans would have loved to have got that trinket, but they couldn't because they were agility users. It wasn't like a Swarming Plague Hive type situation where you needed someone else to give it to you. Even if you had the trinket, you couldn't use it. All strength users would have got some benefit out of this and actually would have used it as one of their best trinkets. It was really good. But Retribution Paladin has got much more use out of it than the others, because we could stack up the fire dot that it put on the target very, very quickly, and particularly useful in a cleave situation because it procced off our seals. Now, we don't have seals anymore. In fact, when they removed them, which was for the pre-Legion patch, that trinket went from being just statically in that number 14 slot to just not being equipped at all. It's totally useless. So what happened was I produced a video just before Hellfire Citadel went live, and I left it till the last minute. I really left it to the last minute because there's been form on this before. This is the sort of thing that's been happening for years. And I thought they're just going to change it at the last minute. They're going to change it. And they didn't. So I thought, right, okay. Everyone needs to get this trinket. In fact, it doesn't even matter what mode it's on. Get it on normal mode. That'll still be better than mythic trinkets. Now, that told you something. That told you it was too powerful. And sure enough, they nerfed it. Now, it's not that the nerf wasn't justified. It was a bit silly having a normal mode trinket be better than much higher item level mythic mode trinkets. It's the fact that they did it after, on the launch point when this was obvious sometime before. Why didn't they change it before? But at that point, of course, it made a complete nonsense of that video. It was still BIS, by the way. It was not like throw it in the bin. It wasn't that bad. Now, with Convergence of Fates, it is that bad. It is, if you've already got... I'm not saying delete it, because you never know, they might change it again. But, because the other question is... there's two principal questions that people have been asking me. One is, why has it happened, which I'm going to go through. And the other one is, does that still make it BIS? Now, to answer the second one first, no. Unless it's at high item level, which is possible. It's from the penultimate boss in Nighthold. So even the baseline version will be quite high item level. It is possible that just for the strength alone... it could be better than a much lower item level trinket that you've had to get from a dungeon. So it is possible that it would be a good trinket to use, but purely as a stat stick, not for the effect. So in terms of why it's happened simply because this is a trinket that allows you to use your DPS cooldown more often. Everyone, of course, gets a lot of benefit from their DPS cooldown. DPS cooldowns are a really good feature that allow DPS players to exercise a little bit of skill, because good use of them will determine how much DPS you can do in a fight. The problem is that we get a massive amount of our damage from the DPS cooldown, more so than most others. Most, and I don't just mean most by a little over 50%, as in the majority of our damage comes during Crusade, more specifically. I could say Avenging Wrath, but I really mean Crusade, because that's the other thing. The Crusade talent we just take all the time. It goes against Blizzard's design philosophy with talents that they're situational. There's nothing situational about it. That bottom row is a completely dead talent row. We just take Crusade. Single target boss. Yeah, you want Crusade. 2 or 3 target cleave. Yeah, Crusade for that. Oh, full on AoE. Yeah, use Crusade. Oh, right, not raid bosses. Oh, dungeons, yeah. And it's the thing with dungeons. What do? Do you go for stuff that's going to be good on trash, or stuff that's good on bosses? Because you can't change your talents in Mythic Plus even if you've got a tome. So you need a talent that's sort of good for both. Yeah, Crusade's best for both. Use Crusade. There is no situation where you would not use Crusade. And I think, and I'm not going to say this is definitely the case, because just because I can't think of something doesn't mean it's impossible. But I don't think Crusade can be tuned properly, because if you nerf it, you will never take it. So it's either so good that you always take it, or not good enough and you never take it. Because there's nothing about the way the talent works that lends itself to one situation or another. It's not like you look at it and think, yeah, it's better in single target than AoE or vice versa. It doesn't work like that. It's just straight up better in every situation. And you would have thought they'd have learnt this during the beta testing, where they kept adjusting the values for Crusade up and down. And they either it went really high and it was ridiculously powerful, or they went too low and no one ever used it because it was shit. You just can't get the balance right. It's just, as a talent, it doesn't work. As an ability, it doesn't work. But what we're left with is a situation where we do so much of our damage during our DPS cooldown window that Convergence of Fates was going to mean our DPS skyrockets. As soon as we get this trinket, off the map. Now, what annoys me most about this is not that what was going to be our BIS trinket is no longer our BIS trinket. We have to look for others. That's actually pretty bad, because where we're going to have to look for them is back in dungeons again. That is doing Mythic Plus dungeons and praying for Titan forged trinkets of like faulty countermeasure or something very similar. That's spectacularly annoying. That's really bad that they finally bring out a raid tier and put actually decent trinkets in that, because I don't see what the problem is with having the best trinkets drop off raid bosses. But what's really annoying is the fact that, as far as I know, as far as I can tell, I'm not an expert on these other classes, so correct me if I'm wrong, but that every other class will want that trinket, or the equivalent trinket, because there's a couple of types, as I say, for different types of DPS. They will want it, and it will, and when they get it, it will significantly increase their DPS. It'll be like really good. BIS trinket. And we don't get that. We now do not get a trinket that's going to make our DPS jump up. So, at the moment, of course, not a lot of people have it. I mean, most people haven't even killed these bosses in Nighthold. So think about this. You're going through, I was going through, you know, and the damage I was doing. I was making a lot of mistakes, of course, and I on several fights, I used my cooldowns poorly. You know, I'd never seen these fights before. I'd read up on them, watched a couple of videos, that's about it. Didn't do PTR testing. Most of us didn't do PTR testing. Lots of us were making lots of mistakes, sure. But my damage was pretty competitive within the raid group I was in. And I'm thinking, you know, this is all right. I'm doing all right here. But then I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute. Now what's going to happen, or was after the event? Because during the raid, I was thinking, oh, we get to Elisand, going to coin Elisand. Hopefully I'll get that trinket. Now I'm thinking, hang on a minute. What's going to happen when everyone else gets this trinket and I'm having to muck about with an elemental focus or something? Yeah, I don't know. Are Blizzard going to like... I mean, is it just a case of Blizzard are going to say, okay, we're going to do too much damage with that? Fair enough. So we're going to stop them using it. Because that's what they've done, by the way. This nerf isn't a tuning issue. They've not tuned it. They've basically taken it off us. It's like taking it off our loot table, only worse. Because if it was off our loot table, at least we couldn't coin it. So they've designed a DPS trinket. And of the 12 classes in the game, all of whom can play DPS spec, they've banned 1 out of 12 classes from using it. Is effectively what they've done, from getting that effect. So how has it come to this? It has come to it because of this, what I would see as a failed design philosophy that has existed ever since TBC. When Avenging Wrath came in with our TBC toolkit, there were issues straight away because you had this DPS cooldown that allowed us to... It started off being a problem in PvP. We could burst people down. We could kill people quite quickly in PvP. So they nerfed us. But the problem was it wasn't actually excessively powerful in PvE. So we ended up getting nerfed baseline, which affected PvE players just to compensate for problems in PvP. And the same sort of thing has been happening ever since. That an issue in one area means they have to over-nerf and to compensate to prevent us being too powerful. But it ends up negatively affecting you in other ways. So then they have to keep trying to retune. But they don't seem to do it in any sort of hurry. They don't seem to have any urgency about it. Now, I'm not going to say that we're suddenly going to find ourselves at the bottom of the damage meters. That's not what I'm saying at all. I don't believe that is going to happen. To my mind, this is an issue that is caused by the fact that you've got this failed design philosophy. We've got this issue of our class or spec having this issue of this burst DPS. And I know a lot of people would be disappointed if it wasn't like that, because they like the big numbers, they like doing loads of damage in this short window. But it bites us on the arse, because shit like this is going to keep happening. It has happened for 10 years, and it is going to keep happening over and over and over again. Because I understand, or not understand, that's not true. I appreciate that something as complicated as World of Warcraft is very difficult to manage. And sure, I can understand the concept that you've got some designers who are working, who, you know, when Legion was being put together, were working on the Retribution Paladin, and you've got other ones that were working on the raid encounters, and you've got other ones that were working on the raid gear. But this has happened before multiple times, and I just feel someone should have looked at a trinket. It's like, okay, this is a trinket that can be used by multiple classes. Is there a class or spec that's going to get stupid amounts of benefit from this trinket? And if so, we need to not design that trinket. Or you just have to go to a situation, I've actually said this before, where you completely change the way trinkets work. Because you can either just do class trinkets, don't have any trinkets apart from bog standard boring stat stick type trinkets. But if you're going to have really powerful trinkets, and people who were making this Convergence of Fates, they knew they were making a powerful trinket. Don't make them for multiple classes. Make them class and spec specific. Much like the Archimon class trinket from Warlords of Draenor. Do it like that. Because otherwise this sort of stuff's going to keep happening. The other thing they could do is they could just be aware that, do you know what, our burst DPS, the fact that we have these ridiculously powerful cooldowns, keeps causing trouble, and they just need to change that. Everyone has DPS cooldowns. Everyone does a lot of their damage during a DPS cooldown, but it's just not to the same effect. You can sort of see this, like before 7.1.5, on the opener, you know how it is, you race to the top of the meters as a Retribution Paladin. And then after that 30-second window, it sort of creeps down, it goes down, and then 2 minutes later you can use it again, back up it goes. And it sort of oscillates like that. So if you finish a fight just after Crusade is finished, great, good DPS. If you kill a boss just before it comes off cooldown, that's really annoying, because that was when it's on the downward bit, that's on its trough, and you were about to build up, but no. So timing has a big factor in it as well. I mean, the only thing that could be said for this Convergence of Fates trinket, even in its nerf form, is if the strength is actually good enough just to equip the trinket as a stat stick, you might actually get into a situation where maybe a kill time of 4 minutes before meant, oh no, my Crusade was almost off cooldown but not quite. Actually, you might actually get a use out of it in that particular situation. But you know, that's very, very RNG. Whereas, as it was before, and as it will be for every other class, you will definitely get additional uses of your cooldown during this period. Now, I did mention that we go to the top of the meters on the opener before 7.1.5. A little different now, as I'm sure people have tried, have experienced. Demon Hunters now seem to have that, and perhaps, I don't know, maybe it will be nerfed for Demon Hunters, Havoc Demon Hunters. We will have to wait and see on that one. But at the moment, there's no sort of sign of that. So anyway, there we go. It's a bit of a negative one, I'm afraid. It's sort of off the hip as well. Usually when I do these sort of videos, even if I don't script it, I will tend to write myself a few notes. I've not done that. I didn't intend to do this right now. I intended to just sort of talk about it on Saturday. But so many people have been sending me little messages on Discord and through YouTube that I thought, and a few people have put comments on the Nighthold videos where I thought, well, okay, I might as well just throw it together. So hopefully it'll answer a few questions. It's really annoying. In terms of what I would do about this, if you've already got a Convergence of Fates trinket, keep hold of it. You never know. If it's high enough item level, sim it. If the strength is good enough, use it anyway. Just use it as a stat stick. It might get you an extra Crusade, depending on the fight duration of a particular fight. You never know. But in terms of what to do, if you haven't already got it, we're still going to coin Elisand. Elisand is still a tier boss, so while you need tier, you're still going to coin. And but after that, we'll just have to see what Blizzard do. If they make any other changes, we'll just have to see if this was a knee-jerk reaction that they're going to refine in the next week or two. I don't know. But it's pretty clear they don't want us having this trinket being useful in any serious way. It also means that Draft of Souls is not going to work as ideally, perhaps, as it was going to. But again, even Draft of Souls could be changed. I mean, that's actually a bit of a sickener in some ways. Again, without playing the victim card, Draft of Souls in the hands of a warrior. I mean, for us, it was going to be pretty good if you can line it up with Crusade. In the hands of a warrior is going to do about 3 or 4 million DPS. And for the 3 seconds that it's active, of course. I don't see any sign of it being nerfed to stop warriors getting much benefit out of it, though. But yeah. But anyway, there we are. If you've got any questions, of course, put them down. But, you know, if you see this before the 21st, then, of course, that is when the live rec Q&A is going on. I'm sure this will be a hot topic then as well. So I'll see you then. But if you're watching it after, well, I'll have uploaded that as well by then. So I hope you found it interesting as always. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and share. Until next time, I'll see you later.